Welcome to the Front Garden, brought to you by Coolabah Turf. Visit Victoria's premium instant turf supplier at coolturf.com.au.
And welcome to the Front Garden podcast, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria and proudly supported by Coolabah Turf. I'm your host, Adam Hompas. This is a show for anyone who lives and breathes landscaping, whether you're on the tools, running the business, or just starting out. We're here to talk landscaping career journeys, industry trends, and everything in between. Thanks for joining me. And today we are joined by Rob Mihailescu from the Cutting Hedge Horticultural Services based in Mornington. How you going?
Yeah, good, thanks.
The Cutting Hedge combines expert plant knowledge and sustainable landscape design so that your garden takes itself and serves you well into the future. As always, we'd like to talk about how you started in the industry.
Yeah, I started with the industry with a desire to want to change my work-life balance, but also being a very creative field. My first job or my past career was a fine dining chef. I worked long hours and was never at home. So that wasn't a really good blend at home, especially when our first daughter Matilda came along. I was working 14, 16-hour days, and really it was a bit of a drain trying to juggle a new child and so forth. So when I was cooking, I was always very interested to discover that by growing companion planting, how it changed ingredients. So like with the humble tomato, you don't go for the reddest tomato, you go for the one that you can actually smell the vine and you can smell that, whether it's the marigold or whether it's the basil or oregano, it gives you flavour then when you're making salad or soup or whatever. So therefore I realised the importance of the humble worm, because you can't just simply just put a good plant from the best nursery and just shove it somewhere, because it's microclimate, it's all of these complex stuff. So when I was a chef, I was like, wow, I want to actually learn how to do this. I don't want to be a Band-Aid guy where I'll just sort of drop being a chef and pick up a lawnmower and sort of start off and go, let's see how that goes. I want to actually go, okay, it's a 2-year study, became studied horticulture as well as the landscape design, because even though I wanted to be a designer, I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly what I was designing that was going to be suited to the microclimate. The roots were going to work in a symbiotic relationship. So against, like working with the soil that's there. Yes, you're introducing different soil medium, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work well with other root ball competitors. So I wanted to know all that sort of nitty-gritty,
the forensics.
That most people don't really look at it. They just simply go, okay, I've got a home in a city. My gardenia is growing fantastic. And just because it works in Hawthorn doesn't mean it's going to work down in Summers. And people don't often understand why. So I wanted to know why, and how do certain microclimates and movement of wind, salt spray, you don't have to be on the beach to be impaired with salt spray. You only got to look at, what's the exteriors of your windows doing? Why are they rusting 10 years down the track? Well, hello, you're not getting the salt mist as you think, but you're actually getting it in minute traces, and that's why often then you see things that just don't stand the test of time, like Buxa sempervirens, it's a lovely plant and all the rest. But in a city, you've got different heat conditions and all the rest, and you've got different, fluctuations in temperature as well as the wind velocity and a whole heap of other things that quickly diminish a reliable, stable plant to something that's non-desired. So then you start going, what's a good alternative plant that I can use as a substitute that isn't going to look too weird with the rest of the thing and isn't going to be something that the client doesn't really want to have in their garden? Because I've been doing this for 25 years and the trends have changed a lot. In the early years, everybody was going for, I guess, Mediterranean, European style. It was sort of different. Whereas now people really want sustainability in the sense that they're putting things in once and the plant there doesn't consume your time. And it grows. So therefore, they're amazed and they're rewarded for, picking, the right plants, the right quantity and putting it in the right spot. So therefore, it's something that they really aspire for. So when they're often going for a walk on the foreshore or something like that, they don't know the plants that are there. They know there's some grasses and there's something that kind of looks like a shrub and it's not a shrub and they can't sort of describe it. But only if you're a horticulturist, you actually know that, okay, when you're down in Blairgowrie, it's a different microclimate to somewhere in Summers or somewhere in, wherever you might be along the coast or in a city. And it's the same as when you're going for a drive, you'll see different things blooming. Like at the moment, it's just weird how spring is sort of just there. And in certain zones, it's not there. And you're sort of going, but why is that? I've seen magnolias 3 Ks down the road. They're already in full bloom and the bloom's finished and they've already got leaf. Whereas where we are in Mount Martha, they're still like sticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just
really,
really funny. So you then understand that, temperature and shade patterns and all of these things vary on plants. So I really wanted to be somewhere where I actually understood all that so that I could be of value to somebody rather than selling something. So when I was a chef, you create a dish and of course you want to palm it out and you want to sell it, sell. Whereas when I'm creating, I'm not selling anything, first of all. They're investing in something more than a T-shirt or a steak.
Well, that's why they invest in you, because you've got the knowledge. You've got the knowledge that they want to get out of. It's
to soften and enhance and get the maximum out of the footprint that they've got down there. So I always just say, look, you're either a homeowner or you're apartment, sort of onlooker.
Yeah.
So when you're a homeowner, that doesn't mean that, you just sort of, I guess, spend all your time inside, a bit like a hermit, and sort of then regret that Friday's coming and you've got all these chores to do. Set it up so that you've got things that, if you don't like mowing, have less grass. If you like sitting outside and that you've got nowhere to sit outside, create something outside. And if your kids are bored because get something down there that's going to, just go to Bunnings and just get something for them. So then that way they can really be grateful for enjoying the space. And I think that's where, I wanted to be somewhere where I could actually offer that service, where I could then be of value to them and say, look, do you realise you've got a gold mine opportunity to be able to experience this? How long are you planning to live in your home? And sometimes people say, look, 5 years, 7 years, or we're selling because our kids are no longer in high school. And I ask them how long they've been there. And if they say whatever duration, I kind of look and I go, wow, you missed the boat. You had that golden opportunity to really connect that beautiful pool zone, but you didn't, or you just simply didn't soften and enhance the outside of your full home. And therefore then when it comes time for sale, you wonder why you didn't get the deserved price that you actually strive for. So it's kind of like, I don't want to be in an industry where I'm kind of looking and sort of thinking, yeah, that'll work.
So has that always been a passion of yours? Or was it just from when you finished during your chefing time, or was it pre that?
It's always been like, I've always sort of had this OCD where I always just strive for something that is a little bit more. And when people say you can't do it, it's sort of, I don't know, it just puts an extra rocket boost sort of and just sort of propels me to try and sort of see, why can't this be done? Why can't I do it? Is it because it's a physical demanding thing, or is it because time, or I don't have the skill set? So therefore I look at, okay, what is it that I need to do paving better? Do I need a better grinder? Do I need whatever it is? So then that way then I know how to finish those services off exactly how it is. So it's the hunger for knowledge, I think. When you want to learn like a sponge, and you don't say no to any opportunity that you have to learn off anybody. So even when I come in, I've been doing this for 25 years, but when I'm coming into any site and I already see there's a landscaper there, however, I've been called in as a consultant on the soft landscaping aspect of it. So I'm not there to create waves with the landscaper there. I'm there to complement them when they're doing their decking or their paving, so they realise if the planting pocket was a little bit bigger or shorter, or rather than doing this big deck, if you perhaps encompass it around this tree, then it will make your deck look amazing. So I'm there to assist and help and offer value. I'm not there to say the decking's oversized.
You're there to work.
I'm there to get the best out of it. So then that way, then the other landscaper that perhaps is already on site, or the chippy or whoever it is building something, they can see, actually Rob from the Cutting Hedge Landscaping was actually a benefit to me because they helped me, rather than they just said that the deck was, not correctly built.
So would you be brought in after the hard structures are done? That's what it's sort of sounding like. Or do you get full designs done with hard and soft, and then someone does the hard, you come in and do the soft?
So great question. So I like to be called in as early as possible. So if somebody's perhaps undertaking that they're going to do a knockdown rebuild and they know that they're going to be building their dream home. However, at the back of the block, they're going to require additional privacy or enhancement because now they're going to have full, big windows and so forth. They don't want to be looking at their shed that's there that they're going to retain or their neighbour's shed. So I sort of try and plant the seed literally into the client, so to speak, by saying to them, look, do you realise that it's going to be a 2-year build and you might have some delays along the way? If you were to use that 2 years, you could start off with a knee-high plant and we'll finish at fence-high plant, and you buy that plant for X amount and then it's got value that's 5 times more. So therefore, it preserves that landscaping budget so that it extends it. Or when they're doing the site cut and so forth, I always just try and say, utilise the services that you've already got on site. So when you're doing the site cut, don't just think about your home. Think about the exterior. So while the machine's down there creating...
Perfect, yeah.
Sculpt it, at least dump a whole heap of soil down there, cover it with, geotextile, peg it down, so that way even if you leave it sitting there for 2 years, you're not going to have to re-excavate that area because it's already preserved.
And a lot of the times you might not have access later to excavate. And I've seen that before too. People say, what can we do in the backyard? And they've just got fill and rock. It's like, well, this is going to cost you X amount. And it's really good what you said, how getting in early. Get in early so you can prep it up.
Coolabah Turf is an award-winning grower of premium, drought-tolerant, self-repairing instant turf for Victorian residential, council and commercial landscape customers. Create the perfect backyard with your next project. The kind where barefoot kids chase balls and dreams, where family pets run wild and free, and where summer barbecues with friends and neighbours turn into memories that last a lifetime. Get in touch with the friendly crew at Coolabah Turf today. Call 1800 055 515 or visit coolturf.com.au. LV members who mention this ad will get free delivery on their first order.
You have to, because what a lot of people don't understand, especially if they're a specialist in hard landscaping, is the importance of really good friable or versatile sort of soil. So they often think that, okay, we'll cut out a metre depth somewhere else, we'll plonk that soil over there, and we'll just put 100 mil of soil just on top, and we'll just get the same soil as we're going to get for our, instant turf. And I go, it doesn't work like that. You've got to get soil with what's called the right air dense porosity, and a lot of people don't know what that is. So I often just sort of try and use non-complicated terms and go, well, if you spill a glass of water on your table, what's your natural instinct? You go there with a sponge, but if you quickly wipe it, you'll spread that water everywhere. So you want to really make sure you leave that sponge on down there and take it off 20 seconds later, and you're pretending that sponge is that soil. So it can hold on to that thing. And when that soil has got living components, like the soil that I'm always like a big advocate for, has it got any living cultures in it? And they go, and I go, has it got any manure in there? Yeah. So I like incorporating sheep, horse, cow in there as the base, and then mountain soil, sandy loam, or whatever it is down there, so I can get the right mix, because then that way, if I'm planting natives, I know this will go well. If I'm planting exotics, it requires a total different thing. If I'm doing foot traffic and it's going to be lawn or ground cover, it requires a certain different preparation zone. So it's not that blanket effect where you submit it in a quote, or somebody says, look, I've got a quote for X amount. Can you do cheaper? I go, look, I'm not even quoting on the same thing. I'm actually giving you what needs to be there. I don't know what the other person's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm trying to say is, being a horticulturist enables me to have that confidence to say to them, this soil needs to be there. And if they don't want to do it, and I just simply say, I won't be offended if you go with somebody else because they're cheaper. But if you're investing in me, then you're investing in getting the right result. So then that way, then the plants are able to thrive from day one, rather than sort of trying to resuscitate plants that have got transplant shock because you may have gone to Hawthorn or whatever, bought the most expensive magnolia, put it in an appropriate area, and then you wonder why you got leaf drop or why you got different other components. And then they're trying to put on as much fertilizer on there. You can't resuscitate all of those things. And I always go, the foundation of future growth is the soil. So if you're using a 20 centimetre pot, you must have at least 10 centimetres of soil underneath. So people always underestimate the preparation that's involved to get plants started and growing. So
and that's one of the things with a lot of the new build. The amount of times we go to a new build, they say we want to redo our front landscape, and what they've planted, it's in, clay, crap, shale, but the lamandras, things like that are going to survive. But it's very interesting because it's a lot of time and money that they would have to invest to get the desired result because they're investing so much money in the plants. And that's where your difference is, isn't it? Is that you're doing the whole thing from start to finish in terms of the preparation.
Spot on. And that's what I always say. There's, you only get one opportunity to get the depth of soil in, because that depth of soil then dictates how much mulch you can have, whatever the edging is going to be required, whether it's going to be the natural lip of the driveway or the garden bed that perhaps might be paved, you're using that as the edge, and you're finishing about 30 mil short of that. So that way, if you get wind or excessive pooling of water, or you get birds, you don't have to then be sweeping your paths as regularly. Whereas when you then start working backwards and you go, our finishing level is here, we need to leave that 3 centimetre gap, we need to have 10 to 15 centimetres of mulch, so you're already sitting at close to 20 centimetres, and then you need to have a 30 centimetre. So the clients don't understand sometimes where a quote comes from, because you say to them, well, it's going to be $50,000 to do the work, example only, and they'll go, they're kind of thinking it's only that $7,000 worth of plants. And it's a bit of a false economy. They kind of think that I'm just going to dig a hole, I've only got 150 plants to plant, and it's going to be over in 2 days. They don't
see the work that goes into beforehand. It's exactly as you said. But I'm assuming you explain in your quotes and in your consult, say this is what we're going to do to make sure that your plants are going to survive.
I always do. And I always say that for any investment in a client that goes through with the actual design as well as the construction and the install, basically for the next year, I'm there to come in periodically throughout the year. If not, as a conservative, will be once every change of season, every quarter, so that I can see how did, this summer was brutal. How did your plants cope? Do the internodal trimming, do whatever's required down there, feed your soil. So most people don't understand that you need to feed your soil. You're not feeding your plants. In the end, what you're trying to do is, it's very simple. The more worms you have in your soil, the more growth you'll have, and the more feeder roots or those hairy roots will be able to tap into those nutrients and be able to get a bigger root ball. With a bigger root ball, it can then support a bigger head of canopy. And it's very simple. And a lot of people they just go, I'm not going to go for the 14 centimetre pot because it's only knee high. I'm going to go for the 50 centimetre pot. And I go, I don't mind whichever, but the preparation is exactly the same. If you're using a cell, a tube, 10 centimetre all the way up to a 120 litre bag, you need to make sure that you've got sufficient layers underneath it. So if you're using a 120 litre bag, which is quite a big, heavy pot, so to speak, you still want to make sure you've got 10 centimetres under that physical hole, which will mean that you're digging something that's roughly, like 80 centimetres deep, which is quite a lot.
It's a lot.
So a lot of people kind of don't realise that, and they'll just leave it on the surface and then they'll just mound the soil over the top. But then the plant kind of doesn't really work the same as if it was in the same body of soil.
Do you include drainage with that too? Like, do you take that into fair amount of consideration?
I do. So drainage is one of those things that often gets so overlooked in any landscaping. So often when I am on site, I'll look at what's the drive coming down, as in, like, have I been, gradually coming down the hill in order to get to this property, or what's the next door neighbour's one? Have they got retaining walls down there? And have a look at, various scenarios that's down there. And you could be coming onto a very flat site. However, that 3 streets back, it actually does, a single story turns into a double story.
Yeah.
So therefore you go, okay, well, that water has got to permeate somewhere else. And if you've got a sufficient enough buffer, you can actually implement swales. So what I often say to them is, at the back of the property, mount up your soil so that you don't have to put H-beams and concrete sleepers against the back fence line. You can if you've got limited amount of room, and therefore then push your soil up to that metre height or something like that, which is roughly half the size of your fence. And then you can then be planting whatever things that you want that in its original state would have been belly button height. But because of the fact that now all of a sudden you've elevated the soil, it's already at head height. So then it's a perfect fit. And then rather than, overcomplicating things and putting in more retaining walls, I always like the soft approach as far as like putting in boulders or rocks to create those unique planting pockets, because then that way it gives you an opportunity to sort of sit there, or it balances out. So if you have got something that's in front of it, then the contrasts and just how it makes you feel. And that's what a garden is. It's not there to look pretty. So when designing something or trying to get the client to envisage experiencing a sensory experience in the garden, you need to then say to them, look, when you have something that's flat, it's very hard to evoke any energy because everything's kind of one layer and you don't get a chance to see that. However, if you were to mound it in strategic spots so that you can get amazing result back from your carex as opposed to whatever it is that you're putting in there, the myoporum, if you put the myoporum just flat, it's just going to look like,
But if you're going over rocks,
but if it goes over a rock, people...
It's a natural look.
That's correct. And they may have not liked the myoporum in the first place because they go, but when they see it in something else, they go, I like that plant. And I often love saying to the client, you told me you don't like that plant, because it gets them to think that don't eliminate certain things, and the importance of presenting, being able to create that illusion of more space and depth gives you more harmony and gives you more balance.
Yep.
And that's what you're investing in to get that opportunity to always say, create those living memories in your space. You're only there, for whatever duration that you are as a homeowner, and you really want to make sure that when you get friends and families that they want to come to your home and you love coming home, and when you've had a crappy day or a good day or whatever it is from work, you get to go outside and you go, my God, this is our family garden, and you just sort of pinch yourself a moment and you go, how lucky am I?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. What are some of the differences you're noticing? I guess obviously, as you said before, how certain things are starting to flower at different times. Are you adapting to these changes? Are you sort of starting to plant different things in certain areas?
Yes, I'm certainly planting a lot more native and endemic species. So whether you want to say it's global warming or whatever you want to call it, I just call it the shift of season. Yeah. Because 10, 12 years ago, you pretty much knew the first week in September, XYZ was going to happen. Now that's pretty much the second week in October that activity is coming 5-6 weeks later. So it really kind of pushes it out. And that's why then we seem to have this longer summer. It's not a longer summer. It's just still the same X many days, but it's just been pushed along another 4 or 5 weeks.
That's it. It's interesting that you said that, because even we've got a silver birch at home. It only dropped its leaves a couple of weeks back, I think it was. And we're talking at home and my wife's like, I thought it was meant to drop early. I was like, it was. But as you said, the seasonal changes. So that's what happens. Do you mainly work down in the peninsula way, or do you venture up to the city at all? Or
so I generally service city-based clients that have got, say, weekend homes, or maybe they're contemplating the big move down the peninsula. I don't go to the city for really anything. I find myself that I get plenty of interest around where we are in Mount Martha. So I fortunate to service a lot of sort of the neighbouring community, or in Mount Eliza, or further down in Summers or Cape Shank, or...
So the peninsula way,
Peninsula is always the way. And the main reason why people contact me is they realise that I am, on the Mornington Peninsula, I am a specialist in certain things that they actually require. So such as erosion control, when they've got all sorts of issues. Like last month I handed over a garden close to an acre down in Macrae, 15-metre drop from the front to the back. You can't just simply just fling something down there and not expect it to,
So what do you do to implement the erosion control?
So, you're using obviously coir and peat moss sort of mats, and you peg them down, but you're also implementing other swales, and then you're implementing like really big rocks, like 1.5 ton, pieces of Mother Nature, sticking them into, the hillside. So then that way then you can get, things spilling in between or so forth. So you're not doing, I am more the natural approach to landscaping. I feel as though that a landscape is really about the feeling and the ambience of the plants. So you could have the world's best paving and a gold-plated retaining wall. However, it's only going to look good and only going to feel great if it's got the right plants softening that right proportion of that gold-plated retaining wall. Otherwise, it's just a sterile zone.
I guess these days a lot of people do focus a lot on the, sterile side of things. They've got hard paving, hard retaining walls, but utilising the natural elements. And as you said, with your natural rocks, the myophorum, overflowing those rocks, and especially with what you were saying about swales. So anyone who doesn't know, do you want to explain and talk about the swale drains?
Yeah, so swales are something that's big in permaculture, but what it is in a sense is a mounded soil. So if you got your wheelbarrow, you would drop 20 wheelbarrows and you create this hill/mound, and you generally make it so that it's, depending on the size, but, an average one would be somewhere where it's sitting at 40, 50, 60 centimetres high, could possibly be 2 metres wide, and then it could be however many metres long. And what it, in a sense, is on the back end of the mound, so to speak, you've got all your water that's coming down the hill, and rather than just continually going past the area where you're trying to plant, you've actually put a barrier of soil there, and you've planted either side of it. You've planted on the bit that's just going to hit the water, you've planted on top, and then you're planting on the bit that's coming out as the water permeates through. So what it does is a swale diverts/sucks up any water that's coming through. For example, if you've got 100 litres, say you poured a bucket with 100 litres of soil, 100 litres of water over your soil, it will just go from A to B really quickly. However, if you put this mound of soil, what you'll notice is it might take half an hour and you'll get very little seepage coming through, or you might get half, and then that means that, okay, I put in another swale or another mound, and what it then means is the most important thing I feel as though is you're not going to get any of your soil that's going to go, because no plants can actually live in that sort of boggy environment that you want to have close to your home. Nobody really wants a bog next to their backyard door. So in order to prevent any of that, and in order to not then be trying to put in Aggies and all the other components that then, yes, they rectify the situation. However, then they make it a little bit more complicated in order to try and plant over this zone where you're trying to backfill with scoria and all the rest. So you want to try and preserve any of the water that's on site. So all my gardens, and even our family garden in Mount Martha, we got no irrigation.
Yeah.
We are in a wind corridor, and a lot of the gardens that I do, I don't put irrigation in as a necessity. I put it in there as an option, because I'm planting things that work whether we're in a La Nina, El Nino, whatever phenomenon that we've got, so that then it can sustain itself. So the sustainability aspect of it comes through in so many different ways, and that is the biggest one. Everybody should be investing in their time efficiently. So the biggest sustainable thing is time for waiting for the plant to get knee-high, waist-high, eventually fence height, if that's what you desire. It's not just knee-jerk reactions where you're just simply just buying whatever's got the prettiest flower, putting it in.
Well, there's a lot of thought that what has to go into what you're doing and what we're doing. And when you were talking about boggy soils before, I remember, I think it was out in Point Cookway, one of those first big estates that they built. It was around the old RAAF bases, and the ground apparently from all the shells, and it was terrible. And it was thick, boggy, and apparently the rectification works that they had to do for that was phenomenal. We're using swales, doing all this type of thing. So are they some of the challenges when you would get to a job and you look at their condition and think, okay, we need to do some serious work here, implementing whether it's erosion control, or how do you use, I guess, the soil that is there, how do you turn that into good soil?
Yeah, awesome.
If you can.
Great question. So a lot of it is, I would then look at, obviously, like what's the time frame that the client actually needs. Obviously, the longer the time frame means that the more sort of, I guess, natural sort of as far as time is concerned. What I mean by that is you could if you've got a 2-year project, for example, you could dig a whole big trench where, you're digging 1 metre deep and whatnot, and then you're putting it with all green waste in there, and you're putting some manures, and then you're backfilling the last 100 mil.
Yeah.
And you're letting it decompose. You're creating a compost heap down there, and then what happens then is there's no digging out.
Yeah.
You just plant right on top of it, but you can't do it instantly because you haven't, none of the stuff's broken down, gone through the mycelium stage, which, for those of you that don't know what that is when you try and make your compost heap, you're putting in all your bits and pieces down there, and then you turn it over, maybe you'll get to it 3 days' time and you'll notice it might be some condensation coming off, or you might move it and might be sludgy, and you might see all of these little bugs that kind of look like fleas and so forth down there. And then maybe the next week you'll see this mold and you'll go, oh my God, our compost heap has gone moldy. But that's the mycelium that you want, because that is then going to create that liquid gold for you that you really, your plants are going to really thank you for in their, in their growth.
And it seems like that'd be one of your edge or hedges, as I sort of would say, about what you offer as a service, is that you go that deep with the anatomy of the softscape and what you can do to use what's on site.
You have to. So sometimes when you say to them, look, you need gypsum, and they go, oh yeah, clay breaker. And I go, do you know what it is?
Saw it at Bunnings.
Yeah, and most people, all honesty, they don't know what clay breaker is. And I'll say, okay, if you can imagine that we are standing apart a metre, and I just use this analogy, like we're standing apart arm's length, and we then put gypsum and we're the particles. All of a sudden what it does is it means that I drag you side by side right next to me, and the spot that you had now becomes an air pocket, so to speak, so that then the fibrous roots or something else can get in there, air, water, nutrients. And so it disperses the medium from being, I guess, loose to more concentrated.
Yep.
So it doesn't make anything disappear. And I always say, look, I'd rather be working with clay, heavy clay soil, than something that's literally farming on a sieve. Like on the foreshore is actually a real challenge, because I go, it doesn't matter if we dig out 0.5 metre, 3 metres, whatever, because the base layer, we are on a permeable sieve. And so there's no point going, oh, we spent all that money and time and effort. But if your plants have gone from knee-high to whatever that they need to, then it's been money well spent, and it's given them all the ingredients that they need. However, you need to also implement the fact that they've gone from knee-high to waist-high. You need to then condition the soil, and you need to then look after those worms. So you need to put down, whether I'm a big advocate for sea mungus. I love it. Palletorized seaweed kelp. And also I love using Charlie carp, which is just all the scraps of fish. So in a way, like, people have got pets, so they often don't want to have Osmond coat, slow release granules and so forth, because they don't want to be going to the vet and so I often say to them, look, you want to get all of these components in down there, so in that way then you've got everything that your soil requires, because then that way you're kind of putting down periodically almost like this, your quilt, like this living culture down there, so that you can get those worms coming down there. And then the more worms you see, you're not actually going to see the worms, but you are going to see birds coming around and trying to scratch it and get them. And you shouldn't be annoyed at that. You should just go, that's success. Whenever you see any birds in your yard that are digging up, they're making mess, but you should go, that's great.
That's a win-win right
there. That's a win-win.
Exactly.
So a lot of people kind of get a bit annoyed, and they sort of don't understand that that's actually no one's got X-ray vision. You can't see.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It is a really good thing.
That's awesome. Where would you see your business going in the next couple of years? And the reason why I'm asking is because, like, the knowledge that you've got is phenomenal. I'm curious to see where the Cutting Hedge would go.
If I have to really tell you my dream, then...
No, you don't have to. Just, let's say, like, would you want to expand the team? Do you want to venture further out to sort of different areas?
No, what I want to do is just stay humble and stay exactly as I am.
Perfect.
So I am a one-man band.
Yep.
However, I associate or affiliate myself with people that are also like-minded. So no one's a handyman. So in the sense that they're an expert in paving. And when I started, I wanted to do everything and anything. So, and then you find yourself, am I hard landscaping? Am I soft? What am I? Because you spread yourself like diluted cordial.
What's your specialty?
I go, look, my passion is to stay on the soil aspect of, I guess the soft aspect, the soft landscaping aspect of the process. I'll find appropriate people for doing the retaining wall or doing the pergola or whatever it is.
But then that works really well, because that's like guys like myself who have the building license, who we do all the hard structures. We do softscape, but then it's great to have someone with that knowledge to come in and we'll take care of that, and then we do the other side. So that's where that type of relationship with contractors, I'm assuming, could work really well. Yeah,
and it does. So, and I've been using the same, I guess, sole traders / one-man band operators for the last sort of 10, 12 years. And it's sort of been, I guess, the hidden secret to my success is because it's the reliability. You know what each person can deliver. And so therefore when you're on site and you're then recommending, you know, you should have a cabana house there and you should go this and this, and then they often go, well, can you guys offer that service? And I'll say, look, I'll give you the contact of that person and they can come in and do that. We've worked on the last project there. And then that way it's all about building trust because it's very hard for somebody to come in and you meet them for an hour and then say, give me $100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody does that, and nobody will tell you that I've got X amount to spend. So that's why then in a way, like, everything's got to be vetted. So everything's kind of like, you know, you're not running some sort of a cash on the side business. You're running a legitimate business where you're offering guarantees and warranties on all the craftsmanship and all the everything that's delivered, because that's why they have outsourced. They've empowered you to deliver a vision and to deliver an outcome. So often what I do is I'll have an initial chat if somebody's contacted me and they said that they've got these and these issues, and they'll say, when can you come out? And I'll ask them, how do they get my details, blah, blah, blah. I try and coach them through to investing in an on-site landscape consultation.
Your knowledge is fantastic, mate, and it's really, really good to speak to you. But one last question I've got for you. I'd like to know, what's your favourite plant at the moment? What's something that you would love to see more of?
My favourite plant, you know, as boring as it may seem, is actually Carex.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. Like, no 2 days does it look the same. Overcast day, it looks a little bit like something. Really bright day, all of a sudden you see the coppers and the gingers, and it's just such a versatile plant that it's one of those sort of signature, signature dishes, signature sort of...
the chef in you coming out there.
So signature sort of plants that I often feel as though that it really complements, even if somebody's going to have an immaculate sort of a bold garden and so forth, a lot of topiary work. It's nice to have that element of softness down there that can sort of tone it down, but also highlight the fact that you have got things that are shaped.
Yep.
So I would say it's the Carex.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Look, and as I said, your passion really comes through, Rob. It's really good to see. And if anyone wants to check out your work, obviously it'd be the Cutting Hedge on social media. I've seen that you've got some walkthroughs and you have your conversations about the gardens, which is really cool. So thank you very much for your time, Rob. I hope you enjoyed it, and it was really great learning much more.
Went through very fast. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Front Garden, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria and backed by our sponsors Coolabah Turf, proud supporters of the landscaping industry. Don't forget to follow the podcast on your favourite platforms so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's chat, share it with your crew, your mates, or on your socials. Let's keep growing this community together. I'm Adam Hompas. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode of The Front Garden.